Change is never easy. More often than not, we do not have a choice but to accept it. Hello, a warm welcome to you all from HGT University. My name is Ambika and I am from Center for Languages and Communication. In today's lecture, we are going to talk about Thomas Hardy's The Darkling Thrush. You may have heard that how every ending is always a start to a new beginning. One limit that ends something always starts another. This is what Darkling Thrush talks about. Although Thomas Hardy is always known for his novels, but his poetry collections, published in various anthologies, are also popular. One such poem is The Darkling Thrush, which we are going to discuss today.
The Darkling Thrush, a great winter poem that was first published on 29th December 1900. Hardy wrote this poem at the very end of the 19th century, looking towards the new 20th century. It was first printed as By the Century's Deathbed. In this poem, Hardy reflects on the events of the 19th century, his own feelings about the future, and his attitude to nature. The poem opens with endings, the end of the year, the end of the day, even the end of the century. But with every end, there is always a new beginning. What will the new year, the new century, would hold? Hardy seems to subject the Victorian age to sharp scrutiny, analyzing its developments and discoveries in an indirect but suggestive way. Because of all the scientific and philosophical developments and discoveries in the 19th century, religious faith had declined among the overall population. As they say, too much had been learned, too much lost. So, the religious dimension in the poem is borne out not only by Hardy's personal beliefs, but also by his other poems, such as The Oxen, which seems him unable to share a belief in the truth of Christianity, though he wishes he could believe. Talking about the beginnings, then, the poem was also written at the dawn of the 20th century. In this way, it probably gives way to his guarded optimism about what the new age would bring. This actually leads us to think about the importance of the title. The Darkling Thrush is rich in metaphor. Darkling means of the darkness and conveys an end of days metaphor. Here, the dusk doesn't just refer to the dimming of the light. On a deeper level, we deal with the despair and death of the century. Add the winter landscape to this and things get more dismal. Thankfully, not all is doom and gloom. There is another focal point to this poem, the thrush, a complete antithesis to what everything else in the poem represents. The bird speaks of hope, joy, and change. This play of light and shade, called the chiaroscuro effect, is treated equally in the poem. It is about hope in the face of despair, about endings and cautious beginnings, about courage when all seems lost, depending on the way you look at it.
Now let's have a look at the poem and its recitation.
By starting the poem with the personal pronoun I, Hardy is penning down his reflections in the first person I. I leaned upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey, and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. He is leaning on a gate in a little wood, which is traditionally a thinking pose, and the poem conveys his thoughts and feelings. The gate also suggests a doorway into a new place, the new century. It is the end of the century and the year. Hardy talks about the evening when the frost has made the landscape as grey as a ghost, and the leftovers of the winters, that means fallen snow or heavy fog, has made the sun, eye of the day, weak, is making the twilight weak. The poet has personified winter and frost. Frost is described as spectre grey or ghost-like grey. Tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. Here, the poet creates one more scene with his words when he talks about tangled stems that have dried out because of the cold weather. This image adds to the gloominess of the poem. The climbing of dried stems has been compared to the strings of lyres notching the sky. Lyres is a musical instrument that looks like a harp. Now, this comparison is also important in suggesting the lack of music or happiness for that matter. So, the entire landscape is so desolate that everyone has gone indoors to seek their household fires. The land's sharp features seemed to be the century's corpse outlined. He scribed the cloudy canopy, the wind his death lament. The sharp outlines of the winter landscape seemed to him like the sharp features of a corpse, but the corpse is of the dying 19th century. The cloud canopy or sky covers the century's tomb, and the sad wind becomes a song of death. The wind's sound was like a song grieving over the century's death. The cloudy sky is like the crypt, the burial place for the corpse, and the sound of the winter wind a lament for the dead person, that is, the sanctuary. The ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed frivolous as I. In winter, nature is generally at a standstill. Pulse here is the life force of germ and birth. The life force that gives birth to nature seems to have stopped, shrunken hard and dry. Such a drowsy environment feeds to the poet's brooding frame of mind. The pessimism increases, and the poet can see every spirit on earth as passionless as he is. Everything that is living is devoid of the spark of life, almost as dead. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, in a full-hearted evensong of joy illimited. Suddenly, like the proverbial silver lining to dark clouds, a joyful song breaks into the poet's despairing outlook in the frosty twigs overhead. The poet calls the song a melodious one, like a full-hearted evensong. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt and small, in blast-befuddled plume, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. But who was it singing? In these lines, we come to know about the source of the song, that is a thrush. The thrush is old, feeble, thin, and small, whose feathers are disarranged by the wind, blast-befuddled. In such a dark, gloomy environment, the bird has chosen to sing with all her soul in the growing gloom, in the deepening twilight as the end of the day is near. So little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things, afar or nay around. No one knows what inspires the darkling thrush singing. The ecstatic sound of the thrush is in complete contrast to such a hopeless situation. The poet cannot think of any earthly event or cause near or far away that could be responsible. The poet that I could think there trembled through his happy good night air, some blessed hope whereof he knew, and I was unaware. The poet marvels at the blessed hope or knowledge the bird has. There are no straight answers. Does the thrush sing a song of farewell? A hymn of gratitude for the good things that have been? Or does he sing a song of hope, a reassurance of good things that are to come? Like the poet, we can only wonder, keep our hearts open, and just be glad that there is a reason to be happy at all.
So you see how the Darkling Thrush is so rich in metaphor. It not only talks about the gloom that comes with the end of something, but also the hopes that comes with the new beginning. In the next lecture, we'll take up Matthew Arnold's The Dover Beach. Till then, keep learning, keep growing. Thank you.